Welcome to the Nurse Dad Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, host of the Nurse Dad Podcast. If you go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe, it'll direct you to my YouTube where I put out new episodes and short clips. I also have episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I am honored to have Nurse Katrina on the podcast. You are a former ICU nurse. You're now a nurse legal consultant and a lifestyle bodybuilder. We're going to get into all of that. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
I am excited to be here.
And I just wanted to say real quick that the podcast is not sponsored by Yeti, although it should be. But I will say, Stanley, if you're out there, I am looking for sponsors. Also not sponsored by Pacific Foods, even though I consume a lot of their bone broth. I'm also not married to this brand. Trader Joe's, not sponsoring the podcast, even though I will say I get a warm feeling in my belly when I pick out the coffee beans that I want and grind them right there in the store. So, you know, I'm putting it out there. To start out, you're from a military family, right? Your father, your brother, who else?
Yes. So my father, my brother, and my sister are all military.
You're like, I'm good. I think we're representing.
I did JROTC in high school, and I did 2 years of it, and I was like, no, and that's not for me.
No, I understand that. I got in late. I got in at 28, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people who, like your father and the military families. They're great. And you exude it. You're obviously very disciplined. I see your videos, and I'm feeling guilty about cheating on my bone broth diet. Like, I got 2 kids that are screwing me up all the time. We're going to get into that. I want to get into your fitness journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
You did 1 year of, I guess, a staff ICU nurse, 2021, before you did travel nursing for 3 years?
I was an ICU nurse total for 3 years. That's the bedside experience I had as a nurse. I've been in hospitals since I was 15 years old. After JROTC, I found the healthcare class, and that's actually how I got into healthcare. Is I started doing clinicals, so I was like in the ED at 15, and then eventually I went through college. Was like, okay, what do I want to do? Exploring the different avenues within healthcare, and then I was like, I want to go nursing. Got my accelerated BSN. I did 3 years. My first new grad position was 1 year and 7 months, and of course that brought you into fall of 2022. So we're still COVID-y.
You were an ICU nurse in 2020.
I was in nursing school in 2020.
Yeah, nursing school. Okay.
Yep. I remember the email I got, clinicals being canceled, and we thought we weren't going to graduate that year. But February of 2021 is when I started CVICU. I did that for 1 year and 7 months. And COVID times, you were really sink or swim.
Yeah, I was in Queens at that time.
Oh my
we were one of the first nurses to see it, communities to see it. It was,
insane. Insane. Yeah. The stories I hear sometimes, I'm like, that's traumatic. Like piling up body bags. I'm like, that's traumatic. I can't even
it was
imagine.
appropriate in the military in terms of what to expect as a civilian nurse. The most ridiculous part of it wasn't even so much that. I had a pregnant wife and then a newborn in May of 2020. And you don't even know how bad this thing is. I once stayed at a hotel because someone coughed on me.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, I guess it was by that point, June. Nobody knew. They were like, oh, it's airborne. We're like, well, is it like TB? What kind of airborne are you talking about? Nobody had the information.
Yeah. Or like, does it get stuck in your hair? I know a lot of the girls, all of us were really concerned about being stuck in our hair.
I remember that. You totally, that's right. Forgot about that.
Because you don't know.
Covered from head to toe.
I know. You don't. It was, scary times.
You said accelerated. Was it because of the RTC? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting my word. Junior.
JROTC?
Yes. What made you qualify for accelerated? Did you get a degree in something else?
I got my first degree at Virginia Tech. They don't have a nursing program.
What degree was that?
That was in human development. It was a pretty good basis, honestly, but it wasn't nursing. I wanted to be a nurse.
Well, the thing with the nursing profession is everything that you do that isn't related to nursing makes you a better nurse.
1000% yes. Absolutely. I learned a lot in those classes, and it also allowed me to get my prerequisites. It was a major where it allowed me to do literally an entire year of prerequisites that were also in the coursework for that program to get into an accelerated BSN. So the microbiology, the anatomy and physiology, all the chem, the stuff like that. I could do all of that. It still was part of the program that I was in, and it would get me into an accelerated program. Day after graduation, I was packed up and in an accelerated program.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had 54 college credits and military, but they were like, no, sorry, you got to
Really?
Anatomy 101. Oh yeah, it was.
Oh.
It took 10 years between military service and nursing school. When I decided in 2008, I'm going to go to the military, I want to get to nursing school, become a nurse. I did that 10 years later. It was not.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was most of my 30s.
What did you do in the military?
Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse. And if you like what we do here on the Nurse Dad podcast, please go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe. Thank you very much. And of course, stay hungry, be humble, Nurse Dad out.
I was a Navy hospital corpsman. So yeah, it was technically like a medical technician, except we were certified to put in crikes and intubate if we had to, and advanced trauma care. And I was attached to the Marines most of the time. I did one Navy clinic in Italy, which was great.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, but then I was with the Marines the other part of that time. When I got out, I did not feel like Anatomy 101, but
That's
you got
crazy.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, just get through it. I feel like we had a paramedic in my program, and she was teaching us so much, and I was like, it's just having to check off boxes, but I can understand that's so frustrating. You're like, I know all this.
Well, I met a whole community. I met a community of veterans who they used up the GI Bill going from one major to the other. They felt like they had done so much and they were getting like a gut punch. And this community of veterans, they've used the GI Bill, they never graduated, and they're just dealing with that reality. And when I got out, you're in your mid 30s and you have no livelihood and living off the GI Bill and the stipend. You better make this happen. You know, so I remember when I was in chemistry and I was not doing well, I got a tutor, but the consequences were so great because it's if you don't accomplish this, if you lose out, you're homeless.
I thought my program was gun against your head, but that's a whole different reality. That's just insane, especially with you had a newborn and
that was
children?
after. That was after.
That was after. Okay.
Yeah.
My gosh, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, going back to school after many years away. But what was that moment that you had as a nurse where you realized this isn't exactly what nursing school taught me it was like? I mean, I guess you were in the ED in high school. I guess you had a more realistic idea, but probably when you were actually the nurse and not looking from the outside in, was there a moment where you're like, okay, I got to readjust mentally for this?
I think there's a reason why people are discouraged from going straight into an ICU as a new grad. I had no ICU experience, period. I tried to get tech positions, but it was really hard to get tech positions as a nurse going to the ICU. So my moment, not in a stressful way, but in like you're going to have to, these are big shoes. It was my first day. And I was like, what is this thing that's in this person's arm? It was an arterial line. I'd never seen an arterial line before. And little did I know that's something that would become my everyday in the ICU. So yeah, I was like, okay. I was like, oh, what does it do? Oh, well, you see that number? It transduces the blood pressure with every beat of the heart. And I was like, oh, okay, this is wild. But I'm excited.
You must have had a preceptor for a while.
I did. I was at University of Virginia. It was a great place to be educated. I had a phenomenal preceptor, and I think that makes a huge difference as well. I still am in contact with her. She's a CRNA now. She's amazing. And she was a strickler, but also knew when to put pedal to the metal and then just ease off a little bit and let me do my own thing. And the program itself was, I forget, I think it was almost 8 months because you did 12 weeks with preceptor, 12 weeks when you're...
Which still isn't that much.
No.
Learning all that stuff. ICU, maybe the floor, even though that's probably not long enough either, but...
Yeah, it was very structured though. I did appreciate that, and I don't know how it is post aftermath of COVID. I heard it got a lot better, but it was 12 weeks with the preceptor, 12 weeks on my own, but you had stable doubles and you were with your preceptor's schedule, and ideally the next door over, that's where she was. So you were technically still with your preceptor, but you had your own patients. And then you came
Oh,
back. Sorry, it was
no,
prolonged.
there was a delay. Sorry about that.
And then there was 6 more weeks of what were sick orientations. So we're talking like the super sick CVICU, the ECMOs, the crashing patients, the open chests, all of those. That's what we got in sick. And then you're on your own.
What was your favorite part of ICU? The favorite type of patient?
Oh, I
If you could say
loved
favorite, but just what you gravitated toward.
I loved a pathway cabbage. That was my favorite patient. And by the end of it, I would even come in, if I were coming in for night shift, they knew Katrina would come in early and you would get to leave early. So they'd be like, hey, we have an admit. We don't have enough nurses to take the admit. Can you come in? And then you'll just leave after you finish 12 hours. So I'd come in at 11:30 in the morning. I'd say hi to everyone. I'd help people waiting for my admit to come at 2:30. And oftentimes they were just simple, hopefully, cabbage patients, which are my favorite patients. And
Explain to non-medical people who might be hearing what cabbage is.
a coronary artery bypass. So a graft in the heart. Yeah, that's graft. A graft in the heart because probably one of your vessels that supplies your heart with blood it's occluded. Usually it's occluded. And you need to put a little stent in there, or what a coronary artery bypass is, it's literally a tube that connects, dissect pretty much a tube. And that's your coronary artery bypass. That's the bypass part.
Some people get multiples.
Yeah,
like 3 or
yeah.
4 or 5 times. Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
get those.
I don't think I've ever seen a cabbage times 1. It was always like cabbage 3, cabbage times.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it is. So you'll get patients where I'll say, man, if my mom had any one of these things, I would just be on tenterhooks. They've got cabbage times 3.
Oh my
and
gosh.
diabetes with an amputation and past the previous cancer. And like it'll go on 10 different things. My
yeah.
Lord, what people can survive and what they still have to continue to go through. It is remarkable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when these people usually their late 70s, 80s was, I would say, my average patient. Sternotomy is not a small thing. That's a huge recovery. Props to them for getting through it. But on the flip side of that, it's usually because preventative care wasn't happening and health in lifestyle wasn't happening. So it further makes you drive home how you should be paying attention to your health as a nurse, which I don't think happens as much as I would like it to be.
My first job out of nursing school was step-down ICU. I stayed in Philadelphia. I went to Drexel University.
Okay.
Great school. I went there on the GI Bill. Settled in Philly for a year, and I worked in a step-down ICU in West Philly, the kind of hospital where if you walk there, they said, wear your scrubs, otherwise you may get mugged. But you wear your scrubs, they'll leave you alone.
Oh.
Yeah. 98% uninsured
Wow.
patient population. Step-down ICU. They said you'll get 4 patients or 5 max. It's usually 5. We won't give you more than 2 trach patients. I would have 4 trach patients.
Oh.
And a lot of times there's not enough ICU nurses. We need to downgrade a patient to step down because we shared the same space. So it was like
Same
kind of
unit.
a lot of that was happening where maybe the ICU nurse would hang 1 or 2 things on my patient, but otherwise I have the step down ICU patient. But you do learn a lot. And I learned that I do not want to be anything related to ICU.
Oh, really?
It's great if you love it. But I was telling somebody, I was doing a live on TikTok a little while ago, and somebody was like, I'm in nursing school. I don't know if I want to do ICU or if I want to do ER. And I said, if you don't want to see the same patient for multiple days, you might want to consider the ER. And she was like, yeah, that sounds good. And
That's a good point.
It's just, ICU nurses are very proud to be ICU. ER nurses very proud to be ER. It's to each his own.
That's actually a really good point, though. I never thought of it that way. I've never thought of it that way, honestly, because it does get depressing and it gets in your head when you start, oh, Katrina's back 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row. Here's the same patient. You're like, please, no, I was running. There was a horrible double.
It makes, and some patients are not very pleasant, and you
No.
get abused like over and over again. You have to anticipate that. It stinks.
Yeah.
I'm under the weather. I have a 4-year-old who's responsible for that.
Oh, it's all good.
You have
All
any
good.
children or anything, or
I have a beautiful
beautiful?
kitten child. She's a senior kitten, but she is a Velcro cat. She was like she just always needs to be close and always around, but no children, but I am going to be an aunt soon. I'm very
Congratulations.
excited.
Yeah, get to practice it. Well, I'm 45, so I got a 6 and a 4-year-old. I need to be as healthy as I can and be
Yes.
able to. I
Yeah.
rescued a cat in nursing school. I didn't meet. Somebody kind of gave me the cat, and they're like, "Look, just hold on to the cat. Tomorrow you can give it to the pound or the rescue place." And I did. I fell in love with the cat.
Yeah. Cats.
That cat
Yeah.
stayed with me, and I left the apartment because there was a no animal policy for that
Wow.
cat.
That is dedication. Was it a young cat or was it
Oh,
a
he was
a
6
kitten?
months. Yeah.
Oh, he was a
Dalton. And
kitten.
I loved Roadhouse, so of course I named him Dalton after Patrick Swayze's character. But
Oh my gosh, that is so sweet. I love that so much. So you became a cat dad first.
I had to move into a small studio, and I screwed in the like planks that were carpeted on all the walls so that he had extra real estate to climb around in.
Oh yeah. Once
Go
you get on
big,
the
go
cat
big or go
hole.
home.
Oh yeah.
Well, they're so easy too because you just got the litter box and you're
Oh
good.
my
You don't have
gosh.
to
You can
walk
leave.
them or. I'll be ready for a dog in a few years. My wife's like, we should get a dog. The kids just got out of diapers. Let's live a little bit. Because it's
Yeah.
like you want to travel. It's like, where are we going to put the dog? Or,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you
it's a
know,
huge
you know.
it's a
I
consideration.
love dogs, but I'm not ready for that because I know it's going to be me picking up the dog poop. It's going to be me walking the dog.
Walking the
Of course, it's
dog.
going to be me.
Make it a tiny dog.
No,
Run
I
outside for a second.
can't do that. I can't do
Really?
that. I know, medium
Oh
dog,
man.
maybe, but.
Yeah.
What attracted you to travel nursing? For me, I was burnt out after 2 years in Queens. We also had moved to Eastern Long Island, where I'm originally from. So it was a very long commute to Queens. Also, the
Yeah.
money. People don't like to talk about it. We're underpaid. It was nice to go to a place and feel like I don't really belong there. So in a way, I don't belong to the stress that place
Mhm.
brings me, and that I actually feel like I'm being paid my worth. What attracted you? And also, before you answer that, were you local travel? Because I was local travel. I had a family, but did you go multi-state or did you stay in Ohio?
I went from University of Virginia to Georgia for my first contract.
Okay, so
And
you
it
didn't go back to Ohio, right?
I'm actually so I transplanted from Virginia to Ohio for my husband's job because he's in
Okay.
healthcare too. So we are native
Oh,
Virginians.
Virginians. Okay.
We just transplanted 3 years ago.
I think of Virginia, I think of my drives to South Carolina. When you're in Virginia, you better take the speed limit seriously. Those cops don't mess around in
Oh
Virginia.
yeah. Yeah. What is it? Felony at 80 miles per hour?
Yeah,
They're
like you
insane
better
there.
cruise at 70 and just go any
Yeah.
faster.
No, they are very serious. Very serious in Virginia.
So you did the travel nursing mostly because your husband had to travel?
My husband was in med school at the time and he was doing his interview rotations. And I was coming to the point in my nursing career where I think I'd been nursing times, right? Post COVID ish, you're still in COVID. So you had a lot of people who had left bedside and there were a lot of roles, like pretty much a lot of the educational hierarchy roles were vacant. And my preceptor was the co-chair of shared governance. And she was leaving for CRNA school. And she had asked the senior nurses, hey, anyone want the role? They were like, oh, I'm kind of working on other things. Then she came to me and she's, listen, I think you'd be really good for it. She doesn't say those things lightly. And I was like, you know what? Sure. I think this is at like a year and 3 months I got into that role. And I had already started having nursing students. You know how it is this time.
Oh, wow.
You
Wow,
already
that-
start
that's-
having nursing students here and there.
That's pretty close,
and
though.
Yeah, and I was also really comfortable asking, hey, am I competent enough to do this? Am I safe enough to do that? And I think that's something that you should be really comfortable doing, especially if you're going to go travel nurse. I think I was a year and 7 months. I was nervous because everyone was like, oh, you have to wait for 2 years. I was like, but do you really? So I had a conversation with her, and while all this is happening, I knew that she was going to be leaving. and there was a lot of turnover happening on the unit. And I also was really enjoying this role as shared governance co-chair. I really liked being in those conversations. When I was leaving, we had an issue with supply chain with CRT bags. And I was talking with stakeholders in this room to try to figure out how to bring these solutions to the bedside, and then talking with the nurses at the bedside on how to improve those solutions. And I loved that role.
Yeah.
And I didn't attach the word consulting to it until later, but I was starting to figure out at that point, I think I need to spread my wings a little bit and gather as much experience as I can and see where I land, because I was already plotting not being a bedside past, at the time it was 5 years. I was like, oh, I won't be here for 5 years. And it ended up being 3 years. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And a
But
lot of times people recommend you get some experience because when you're a travel
yes.
nurse, you have 2 days to
Oh, yeah.
blend
yeah.
in, and that's it. Training's over. So it does
Yes.
help to have experience. But some people are faster learners than others. And a lot of it's also social experience, being able to work with people. And it's a little bit more than just how many years you have under your belt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also had a discussion with my primary preceptor who had seen me learning and we were, like I said, still friends. And I was like, do you think that I'm safe enough? And she's like, I think you should absolutely go travel nursing. And that was like the time when I was like, okay, this is my time. If I don't do this now, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Like I said, my husband was also going off and doing his interview rotations for med school. So he wasn't going to be around for months, and I was going to be alone. And I was like, you know what? No,
Right.
I'm going. And there was a contract actually where my sister lived, and it was between going Virginia. I've been all over Virginia. It was between going to VCU, which is actually where I got my accelerated bachelor's. I really enjoyed the hospital. They were full. They didn't have any contracts open, and I got accepted to a not community hospital, but a less resourceful hospital than an academic trauma level 1 hospital.
Yeah.
And I got accepted, and I ended up going out to Georgia, living with my sister for 3 months, which was amazing. And the hospital was 5 minutes down the road. And coincidentally, my now husband, his interview rotations, he had an interview rotation at the same hospital I was at. So we were there for a month.
That's cool.
It was wild.
And you're living with your sister collecting a stipend, right?
It was amazing. Yeah. I gave her
that's the
some
way to
money
do
here
it.
and there, took care of the cats. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great setup right there.
Yeah. It was
Um,
amazing.
Of all the ICUs, because I do want to get into the legal nurse consulting, but of all the ICUs
Mhm.
you've worked at, what are some common traits that make for a less desirable ICU to work in and a more desirable ICU to work in?
Management. Having an advocate. I was a staff nurse, and then I had 3 different travel assignments. 1 was travel, 2 were local. 3 of them were in Virginia, 1 was in Ohio. And you need someone who is advocating for you because they're also advocating for the best patient care. And my first travel assignment, it was night shift, so you already have limited resources. You get real good at picking out the people who are going to be good. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that charge nurse, I'm good tonight. I can go to them, and they're not going to say, oh, that travel nurse needs something. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a little animosity sometimes,
Yes.
or even the fact that I notice most of the time, if you're a travel nurse, at least for me, you're always going to get a bad shift. They're going to unload some of the more higher acuity on you, if only to ease up on their staff.
I would get triples a lot. I remember one time it took me an hour and a half before I could even assess patients because it was like triple tube feed patients, triple trach, ICU level. It was a learning curve, and I love a learning curve. I
Yeah.
love a challenge, so it was fine. It was also night shift, and I am not a night shift. I do not like night shift. I just wanted the calm and the peace of a night shift
Yeah.
for my first travel assignment. You need to have that gut instinct of who can I trust and who do I have to shy away from, just not really talk to. It's having the instincts to know who you can go to and who you can't go to, because there's always someone you can go to.
You don't
but
want
it
to
was-
hang around people who don't care for you because they might start rumors about you or just
Yeah.
constantly talk about you in a negative light to people.
I'm like, I'm here to do my job, and then I want to go home. I'm here to do my job, a really good job, because I take pride in the work I do, but then I want to go home. I'm not here for drama. And that continued on past bedside too. I don't do drama. I don't care for it, don't have time for it. I got bigger aspirations in life.
Yeah.
than who said this and who said that. It's really keying in on the leaders in the unit who actually want to have your back.
I know day shift and night shift, and I've done them both. And somebody had said something interesting. They're like, if you want a great life, but a horrible work life, be a day shifter. But if you want a great work life and a horrible real life, be a night shifter. It's
Oh
like the
my
night shift,
gosh.
it works well. Less management's on the floor,
is.
and it's great. But
There is.
you're losing hours in a day, and you still have responsibilities. And most of the world isn't working the night shift. But
No. That's
you know.
very true.
I
don't
got an
know, I
11
can-
to
yeah.
11 now. That's my sweet spot. You had mentioned that
That's not
earlier, like
bad.
coming into like a swing shift, right?
Yeah. That's nice. I don't mind that because your next day isn't as screwy. You can still wake up at 7:38.
You
You're
go to the
okay.
gym before,
Yeah.
you still get to bed at a decent hour.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah, management, that's a big one. I've opened up state-of-the-art emergency departments. I've worked in tents in the military. I've worked at magnet hospitals or not. It's really the people, the staff you work with. I once did a 3-month contract in the Hamptons, and 6 travel nurses, nobody, including myself, renewed the contract. And
Really.
it was a very small hospital because of a particular person in charge, and they just ruined it.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, in terms of providing quality care and a balanced work environment, for me, yeah, like you said, it comes down to the people you're working with.
There's a contract I was at. The first one, it might as well have been a no one. It was charge nurses. It was run by charge nurses. I met the manager once, and it was one where it was rotation of who was a manager. I saw them once while I was there. But the next assignment I had, I did get to go back to VCU in Richmond, Virginia, and that was probably one of the best, aside from my staff manager, who I loved so much. She was fantastic. First of all, when you're a travel nurse there, you feel like staff. You feel so taken care of.
Those are nice places when it happens.
Oh, it's so great. I had a patient kick me, and I was working night shift too. I had a patient. I've never B-52'd someone before. This is my first time. I don't do that. ICU.
Oh, you got to explain it for those who don't know. What does that mean, B-52?
Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse, and host of the Nurse Dad podcast. And if you like what we do here, please go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe. While you're on the website, you'll see a pop-up. Fill it out for my free guide, and it will also enroll you in my newsletter. And no, I will not over-email you or spam you. While you're on my website, scroll down and you'll run into my Instagram. In the meantime, thank you for what you do, and stay hungry, be humble, Nurse Dad out.
Oh man, oh my gosh, can I remember this? 50 milligrams of Benadryl, 5 milligrams of Haldol, and 2 milligrams of
Okay.
Ativan. Puts them
Okay.
right out.
Yeah, I'm glad we clarified that.
So the patient kicked me, and there's security in the room. They were threatening this patient. That's not going to do anything. And I was okay. I'm fine. It's a kick. You're still supposed to go through proper channels, but as a travel nurse, you could not do a certain document submission through the hospital, which is messed up. We'll leave it at that. But the manager called me after day shift, and she called me, "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so taken care of, and I'm a travel nurse." So
This
It
highlights
d- it
how
does make a
abused
difference.
us nurses are when someone shows a little kindness and we're just like, oh,
Oh my
wow,
God.
really? No, hey,
I-
that was really
oh man,
big, just 10% of what we do on a daily basis, you receive it. And you're like, oh, that's so great. Thank you so much
yeah,
for
thanks. You cares.
giving a little bit of a crap about me. Yeah.
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 Oh yeah.
That must have really worked out then with fitting in with your family life, with your husband, med school, and being alone. How far did you travel state-wise? How far did you go? What's the furthest?
Georgia, actually. So I did that stint. I came back after for the 3 months. Came back. My husband was back from his rotation, so it timed up perfectly. I took 6 weeks off and then started a local contract in Virginia. But local got a little funky after a while.
Why? Because you worked everywhere?
Okay, we're going to fast forward. So I did local, and I was still driving an hour and 20 minutes in, an hour and 20 minutes back. Day shift and night shift. That was rough.
Yeah.
And then when we eventually moved to Ohio, I did another local, an hour in, an hour back. And if I were to renew that, I left at that point, right? Because I'm in my job now. But if I had renewed that, they were making locals then, I think it was 120-mile radius. I'm like, that's not local.
Yeah, that's just not.
Yeah, so it was getting a little funky by the end. I'm like, this is why I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I was routinely driving at least an hour and 20 minutes because
Oh,
I
yeah.
live out in Eastern Long Island. Everything was always on the border of Queens. So it was an hour and 20 minutes to get pretty much get everywhere. And it takes its toll on you. That drive
Yes.
is what gets me. For almost a year at a level 1 travel nursing. I did for 9 months. I did 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. at a local level 1 near like 20
Ooh,
minutes away. But I was able to get home at 4 in the morning and work out from 4:15 in the morning till 6-ish because the
gotta
drive
get
was
it
only,
in.
it was 20 minutes. But then I tried to
That's
do,
cake.
I tried to do the same thing when I did a 2 to 2 very recently. Like I have a new job now, but before that, but it was 53 minutes to drive home at 2 in the morning. And by the time I got home, very different vibes. It was, my
That's
body
tiring.
just, everything's just draining out of me.
That's a lot.
I'm in a good place
Oh.
now. I'm 13 minutes from my house. It's
Oh,
everybody. I work with 3 male nurses who are all policemen for 20 years first. And
wow.
the pharmacist, she was in the police for 20 years. And a lot of people are ex-military. A lot of people are spouses of military and police. And so it's a very kind and compassionate, but they don't take it from anybody. In the
No.
ICU, I'm curious, in the ED, then I want to transition to your new role. In the ED, you can work in emergency departments that are they're nurse run or they're doctor run, and you can certainly
Mhm.
tell the difference. Is ICU like that? It's such a high echelon of care. Is it always just a doctor run atmosphere, or are there ICUs where the nurses have a lot of the control?
I would say nurses have a lot of control. When I was CVICU, that was interesting because there was a lot of clashing because you're at an institution where everyone thinks that they know what's best. And in that instance, we had the providers, we had the intensivist, we had the surgeon, we had the nurses. So it ended up being a constant issue where it was like everyone thought that their specialty was the most important. It depended on what kind of institution you're at. And if you're at one that's more academic, you have a lot of resources. Yes, you have a lot of smart people there, but I think there can be a little bit too many cooks in the kitchen situation going on.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
honestly did. I
Especially when each cook
appreciated,
is a bit powerful, like too many powerful cooks.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, it was small things where I was like, I'm not going to say anything because I hate to say it, but I'm just the nurse. Listen, I don't have time. They're crashing. I'm going to go
Mhm.
fix that. You all talk.
Yeah, you're the
But you get,
bedside. You're not checking in. You're
yeah,
in the mosh pit the entire
yeah.
shift.
I'm doing a lot of things. But the position that I do not ever envy is charge nurse.
Yeah, me
That
too.
role, ooh,
You could
that
feel it
role
because
specifically,
triage is king, but also this patient needs to be admitted or this patient needs to be triaged. It's like, but I got a chest pain. They're okay on the monitor, but it's active chest pain. But I have 2 patients that rooms just became available. And it's like they judge you on your patient care, but they also judge you if you've got patients that need to go upstairs and they want to bring new patients. And the charge nurse just encompasses that. It's like the pressure is really on them to just keep the place moving.
oh my
And
gosh,
you can't, you can't,
insane.
you can't miss somebody if a stroke alert is called or if they're going through a high acuity issue, but you also better get the patients upstairs when the beds become available. It's just, yeah, that's not a job I envy, and you really don't get anything extra in your pocket for it either.
No, no, not at all. Oh, here's your little extra dollar.
Yeah, $1 an hour, literally $1 an hour. It's actually extra
Literally,
dollar.
people are gonna think we're joking. It's a dollar.
No, it's a
It's a
dollar.
dollar.
I'm glad. Yeah, but you did bring up something that I remembered. One interesting thing I thought with being a travel nurse was things I thought were universal protocol. I go to a new health system and I'm like, oh, you do it that way. I thought all blood had to be on a pump, or I thought this was the procedure across the board before you accessed a port. I worked at a place where nurses don't do Foley catheters. Or I'm like, why? Why not? And the doctors are pissed that you have to tell them he needs a Foley catheter. But
Wow.
I think that's one of the best things I got out of it in terms of how it helped me become a nurse was realizing that there's a lot of different ways that people do this stuff or the health systems do this stuff.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it's something that comes up in my job now. And it's why I wanted to sharpen myself as a tool. I didn't know that I wanted to go into a position I have now. I wanted a very large spectrum of all the different standards of care because I'm very lucky I got to learn at a academic institution, trauma level 1, where you learn standards, and it was standards of very invasive devices. And then I would go somewhere else, and instead of a central line, you're now doing midlines for your pressors. And I'm like, what kind of standard? But then that's their standard, and you can't say any differently. That's what they do. And it's really interesting because now in my current role, you're reading hospital records, and it helps to know all that because you're like, why are they doing it this way? And you're like, that's
Yes.
their standard, and it's really odd, and it might not be clinically appropriate, but it's what they're doing.
Yeah, for the second legal nurse consultant that I've had on here, and I will say, it's one of the great things about this podcast. The one guest where they've affected my care the most was the legal nurse consultant
Really?
because it shaped my documentation after that episode. But like you were saying, for example, I've worked at places where if someone is hypoglycemic, you need to get at least 2 finger sticks over 100. But I've also worked at places where they were 64 or 40 and you got 180. That's fine. And you learn as a travel nurse what you prefer to do. For example, I will do 2, even though I'm not supposed to, but I don't have to. I'll do 2 finger sticks because several times I've received a patient from the nursing home for hypoglycemia, and it turns out they gave him too much insulin. So even though I corrected it, and now I got, they're at 98. Okay, 15 minutes later, they're back to 60. And if I didn't do the second confirmation, I wouldn't have learned it. And this happened probably 4 or 5 times in my career, which is enough for me to have my own policy.
Yes.
But I can see how from being a nurse, I don't want to say nurse first, a legal nurse consultant, you're going over policies like that's not safe, you know? So how did you transition into that? Was it an aha moment? Did someone inspire you who was working in it? Did someone suggest something? Got you into this?
I failed. I was declined from many other jobs, and I got to the point where
You mean
I
like
was
nurse job, ICU jobs?
I was trying to leave Bedside. I'll go back to how we started with wanting to leave Bedside. Like I said, I had known I wanted to leave Bedside, and that 5 years got cut real short. I was at my wit's end. I couldn't. We had moved to Ohio, and I had my contract, and I was driving an hour up. It was a heart failure ICU, and where it drained the life out of me. It drained the last little bit out of me. It's a big hospital system up here, just Cleveland.
I have a
4
friend,
big ones.
I have a friend in Cleveland, and he told me about it.
So there's so many hospital systems up here, and so it's one of the big ones that I was at. And it's a heart failure ICU. So you have really sick patients who are talking to you and walking in the hallway, and they're on drips, and you're titrating drips to a walkie-talkie person who looks like they are not as sick as they are. First of all, they were bait and switched. I have invasive mechanical circulatory device experience, thankfully. But actually, most of the nurses who were accepted onto that unit were bait and switched from MICU to go into this unit. And they were given like a quick little, this is how you do an intra-aortic balloon pump. Cool, now you can take it. That was it.
And you take on the liability for that. But
gosh.
that's what I think gets a lot of people like yourself and me. You're liable for all
Insane.
this stuff. You're the fall guy.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. I was seeing a lot of that. There was tripling of deviced patients with orientees while being in charge. There was no advocacy really going on. And by the end of it, there was a manager that was really not great. By the end of it, I was being put in charge every time I was there because I was a senior charge nurse. And you were taken off the unit while you have an assignment as charge to go to a charge meeting as a travel nurse charge with a whole bunch of other charge nurses who are staff charge. It took it out of me. Really took it out of me. And I was already job searching, but I was like, I need to expedite this. I had already understood, okay, I want to go into consulting. I actually wanted to go into business consulting. I was studying to go into business consulting. I was looking at things like McKinsey and Company, Deloitte, things like that, because they have like healthcare sectors. And then I was searching consulting one day on LinkedIn, because that's where I was primarily searching. And I was also looking at like utilization management, all the different terms that could fall into a category of some kind of consulting. And
Wait,
legal
where did you
nurse
get this
consultant.
this understanding of consulting? Because you're using terms and you seem like you obviously know what you're talking about. Was it from your previous degree, or you just been picking it up over the years as an ICU nurse?
Just a lot of research. It was actually my husband. We knew a lot of people who went into consulting. I didn't really know what that was, like analytical consulting. And my husband, boyfriend at the time, fiance, was like, hey, I think the term you're looking for is consulting, and so does that. This is the kind of company. So I started looking into that. And then I started looking into roles that were away from clinical, very non-traditional roles where I knew that I could potentially flourish, like project management at Epic, things like that. That is not what I ended up wanting to go with, but it's just an idea of really looking
You
at
have to bounce
non-traditional.
ideas and learn what they are and what you don't
Oh
like,
yeah,
and yeah, you're
I-
shaping something, you're molding something.
absolutely. And you're networking and you're figuring this out. And it was really uncomfortable. And I would be at work looking through LinkedIn, looking at all the different types of roles, putting in different words for different roles that I knew that I wanted. I would come home from work, tailor my resume, apply for a job the next day. It was every day I was trying to figure out which job I want to apply for. And I was denied. And every single time I was learning a little bit more
Yeah.
about how to tailor my resume, what to put in my resume, because I can't talk about clinical stuff anymore. They don't care. Oh, you know what CRT is? We don't, because
Well,
we're corporate. Who the heck?
you're already overcoming what makes a lot of people not go for it is rejection. But you're turning it into
Yes.
something positive, because every time you're rejected, you're able to
Yes.
hone in on why you were rejected.
Yes. Every single time. One time, just was doing what I usually did. I typed in consulting and a legal nurse consulting job popped up. And I was like, you know what? I looked into it a little bit and I was like, you hear whispers of this at the bedside. I think it's the one thing
Yeah.
that you hear at the bedside. People whisper about it. And I was like, don't you need a certification for this? Screw it. I'm just going to apply and we'll see what happens.
You
And
did not make a self-judgment. You just go for it.
no, nope. I was like,
Sometimes we fill in the
I know
gaps
I'm qualified for
ourselves, and
whatever.
sometimes we fill in the gaps
Yep.
ourselves to tell ourselves, "Oh, no, we're not. You can't do something like that." And there you go. You're like, "No, you don't need to.
No,
Come on in."
especially nurses, because we at Bedside, you are taught to work in a condition of being undervalued all
Yes.
the time. So when you transition into trying to apply for a role where you're having to be like, am I qualified enough? Can I do this? Yes.
You're
Are
touching on
learning
something.
so much faster than any other person in any profession.
You're touching on something. I had written this
It's
down. I'm like,
insane.
maybe I won't get into it, but it is nurses. How do you say this in a different way? If you talk to a nurse and you're like, "How you doing today? How's life going?" It's almost like everything's good despite. It's a struggle sometimes. You're made to feel like you're a dime a dozen. Not so much by your peers if you happen to work in a good unit, but because of the hospital system, after all, it's a service fee. That's how they make their money with nurses. It's more as if it's a higher acuity patient, but it's a room charge. And it doesn't matter who the nurse is and what they did. It's basically how cheap are they and how many patients can they take care of at the same time, because like I said, it's a nursing.
Correct.
It's a service fee. Whereas a doctor, an MP, or a PA, they can see how much they're valued financially, how much money they bring into the system. And so you're a nurse now, and the system is pretty much how cheap can we get you and how many people can we give you? And you go through that, and it takes a toll on you sometimes. You get into this rhythm of, even if you're confident, you've lived and functioned too long on being, what you said, undervalued, and it might bleed into certain things. Oh, maybe I can do that. Oh, no, I can't do that. Or I'm going to have to relearn this. Or, you just find every excuse in the book, and it's a bad habit.
Oh, yeah. It's so sad. In my DMs, I'll get people who have been bedside for 20 years, and they'll give me the whole spiel of their background. I was like, do you think I could do legal nurse consulting? And I feel bad because I got it after 3 years, and I beat 80 plus other candidates. I didn't know that until after,
Okay.
but I beat 80 other candidates just because I was like tenacious for the job. I was reaching out to HR, all the things.
Yeah, you're
And
hustling.
I have people who have all this experience. What do you have to lose? I mean, nursing, let's be honest, if I were fired from my job today, I could get a job tomorrow. That is the beauty of nursing, I will say.
Yeah.
You always have a job. I work primarily medical malpractice. It's probably the primary case that you're going to be on if you're a legal nurse consultant. Sometimes personal injury. It just depends on, you could be at a law firm that specializes in trial. It just so happens that I see a lot of medical malpractice. And my business partner, Connolly, because we work in legal nurse education, little plug for legal nurse education.
Yeah, I saw her. I see her
She
on
does a lot
Instagram.
of, yeah, she does a lot of personal injury. It's fun talking with her because I'm like, I don't do as much personal injury really at all.
Did
I work
go to
defense
court at all and
side.
sit on? Have you had to sit on the witness
No.
or anything like that? Okay.
Nope, that would be more so the expert witness.
Yeah.
As an in-house legal nurse consultant, if I can't also be the expert on a case because it would be a conflict of interest if I were hired as the legal nurse consultant and the expert witness by my firm.
Okay.
So I couldn't do that, but an independent legal nurse consultant absolutely could be. They could be the legal nurse consultant and they could be the expert in a case.
That's
Which
an important
means you are going to
distinction.
be, yeah. So if it gets to trial, and I will say most cases don't go to trial, the goal is to settle the case or get the case dismissed. If you go to trial, you better know that you're gonna win, especially if you're defense side, because that's like when you win or lose everything. But that is where you see your expert witnesses come into play. I like to say that my role as in-house is I'm like just behind the veil of importance. You'll see my work there, but I will not be there. And my name is not on a lot of things.
Okay.
So
Well,
I like it there.
Yeah,
I don't,
that's a good spot.
it's a good spot to be.
A lot of the lawsuits, are they against doctors or the whole team or the hospital in particular? How does that work?
Just in general, a case, regardless of wherever you are in the United States, a case can be against a hospital system, and then they can name individual doctors. They can name everyone in the room, let's say like a surgical error case. The plaintiff counsel could go through that entire medical record and say, we're naming every single person in this room, even if there was a piece of gauze they tossed in the room, they could be named. So then obviously it gets to defense side, and you have so many meetings, so many depositions, and you're trying to get whoever you can dismissed. And that can be a lot of different counsels too. Just because one attorney is representing the hospital and 2 doctors and a nurse, there could be 2 other nurses who have different counsel and they were just assigned to that counsel. It really just depends. I know a lot of people think nurses are thrown under the bus. That is something I'm trying to spread loud and clear. That is a myth.
What is a
that
myth,
is
huh?
not the case.
Okay.
It's a
That's
huge
good news.
myth. It's actually, it is. And I say that with the caveat of obviously nurses do things wrong. And in that case, yes, there are lawsuits against nurses. But in order for a nurse to be thrown under the bus, there would need to be conversations between the hospital, aka our client, insurance, and the defense attorney saying, who are we going to go after? Who should we go after? I can tell you that doesn't happen, because also that would make you a pretty crappy defense attorney.
Wait, so you're trying to punch up. You want to go after the more powerful, the more influential.
First of all, nurses are probably the first ones they're trying to get out of a case. Because unless a nurse has done something like the Duranda situation, like in 2017, giving Vecuronium instead of Versa.
The famous case.
That famous case, I'm like, that's a great example of, yes, nurses mess up and we do have a lot of responsibility. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But it comes down to, say, for example, there's short staffing and something happens. Something happens and it's determined that it is actually a staff ratio issue. that actually falls back on the hospital. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, that's very reassuring,
So,
actually. I
yes,
feel like this is an exclusive going, trying to fight myth.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's nice to learn that. That's great.
yeah,
I mean, it's not
absolutely.
great that it happens, but no, you're always told, oh, they like throw nurses under the bus. And it
Not
makes
true.
sense. That's amazing that they acknowledge that it was a nurse to patient ratio issue.
Yes, that is something I always want to dispel because I know it's always talked about. And just like there are nurses and doctors who we've all come behind them, or we're like, you're not the best nurse, or you're not the best doctor, or thank goodness I'm here today, or else some things could happen to this patient. But there are not so great plaintiff attorneys either. People like to say, oh, you switch sides. First of all, if you want to say I switch sides, I didn't. I'm defense. I'm on the side that defends the healthcare entity. But regardless, the role of a legal nurse consultant is unbiased, for one. I would happily work on plaintiff side, and patients, we've seen it all the time. I saw a patient lose their leg because a nurse didn't check pulses. Absolutely, if I read that, I'd be like, that patient should pursue a lawsuit. Absolutely. So I think, especially
Yeah.
being healthcare and then looking at law, we tend to see a lot of black and white. And when you step into a role like legal nurse consulting, it's not. However, this myth around nurses being thrown under the bus is actually a very unfortunate narrative that was pushed by unethical plaintiff side, and it just got to Bedside, and Bedside, as we do, we ran with it.
Yeah.
Because it is so much easier. Imagine you are plaintiff counsel and defense has a nurse who is not as forthcoming with information because they have a natural distrust, because they've always been told that they're going to be thrown under the bus.
Right. That makes sense.
And it makes it easier for plaintiff to defend their client and go after. When defense is pointing fingers at each other, it's a lot easier to make your point as plaintiff when their defense is over there trying to get their client straight because no one trusts anyone. It's actually benefiting plaintiff counsel, not yourself at all, as a nurse, as a healthcare entity.
You can see, though, how it's easy for nurses to believe that because you get the short end of the stick constantly. So you're like, well,
Oh,
yeah, of
yeah.
course. So why not? Why wouldn't we get thrown under the bus?
Yeah. I don't blame them. Absolutely not. I don't blame.
I can see
I don't blame
how
nurses.
you go on to the defensive and maybe even less transparent during certain situations, which inadvertently will harm you because you're paranoid about getting in trouble.
Yep.
I totally see that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. That's good to know. I try to spread the word wherever I can, or with younger nurses. And you don't want to see a new nurse get the talk like, hey, we're going to be thrown under the bus. And such a negative energy that they're receiving. Yeah, you got to watch your back. And
Yeah.
I could tell you a few things where a nurse got strangled and her neck was broken and she recovered and she was pretty much pushed out. And another nurse who was being attacked and punched the attacker in order to run away and was fired for punching the attacker after they were getting attacked. Stuff happens, but it's also good to maybe not just run with everything you hear.
Because
Right
also that would be criminal. So civil versus criminal as well. Med mal falls under civil. Whereas if a nurse gets punched and they want to press charges, that's criminal. And I've been at hospitals where a nurse was going through that, which is unfortunate. That doesn't happen more often. We could get into that. That is a soapbox that I will get on. We don't need to get on it. We don't need to go there.
But do nurses have more power than they think if they're attacked?
The issue is the hospital system. The hospital system, and I'm just saying this is experience as a nurse, that's not what I do as a legal nurse consultant. We don't do criminal, we're civil. Now, are there attorneys that probably do just criminal cases on
course.
nurses against patients? Yes, absolutely. But what I will say is a hospital doesn't need to keep you as a nurse, especially if you're at will. A lot of the states now are at will employee. They can fire you for whatever reason. So just because you're released from a case or something is settled doesn't mean that a hospital can't fire you. But then I just go in to say again, go somewhere else. Leave bedside nursing. That won't change regardless of where you go because as we've talked about before, you're pretty much a warm body to do a job. And I think as nurses, we care so much about that job and doing good in that job that the second we do something wrong, especially on a level where you're involved with a lawsuit, rightfully, I would be crying. I would be so distraught. Oh my gosh, I hurt someone. I want to take responsibility for it. Hospitals don't care. You're just another number. Go on to some place that will either value
Yeah.
you or just realize that as a nurse, you can go
Yeah.
anywhere you want with your license. So
No, I'm happy. I found a place when they say we want to retain as many nurses as we can. I believe them. It's a really good feeling. It took my
really,
whole career to get here, and I still don't know what I want to do in the future. I might go back to school for a business degree. You
yeah.
know, I've tossed around consulting myself. I'm not sure yet. My kids they're still kind of young, so my mind is sometimes scrambled eggs. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be in my 60s doing bedside, and I do have aspirations, so I gotta think about that.
But you do a lot of different things. You also do IVs, right? So you do.
Yeah, I do that. I write on the side. I have a graphic novel coming out that I'm going to be
That's
at
awesome.
a local Comic-Con. It's a whole different thing. Me and my wife, we want to get into real estate investments at some point in the future. I was just starting an LLC, so I can branch this out further, but also so I have it in place when we do make a purchase. I purchase it through the LLC and all that stuff.
Yep.
You've been doing legal nurse consulting for how long now?
A little over 2 years.
Your schedule's what, like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of thing?
I go in at 6:30 and I leave, let's be realistic, like 3 o'clock. And I get 2 remote days, at least in my position. There are some that are fully remote. There are some that are all in office. So
That's great.
yeah, I will never go back to a bedside role. I am done. There are things where I'm like, sometimes I'm looking at veins and I'm like, I really just want to stab a vein. So I'm like, maybe I could do IV hydration. I could do that. But I wouldn't go back to bedside just because I've gleaned so much from this job and I have instilled so much confidence in myself in exercising my clinical knowledge in other areas that I wouldn't want to, because I wouldn't think that I'm utilizing everything I've learned. And I want to be building off of what I've learned and not feeling like I'm regressing. Not that I would. Bedside is phenomenal. I could be a bedside for 50 years and be learning something new every day.
Of course.
But I've always wanted to, like you said, like I've considered going back for my MBA at some point. There are so many other ways that I want to touch healthcare that aren't at bedside. And that's where I would like to go in the future when I do leave, because my husband will be getting fellowship. And this is a position where could I stay remote? Sure. But there are other things I could do with the knowledge I have now.
To correct
We'll see.
myself from before, I said that I had a legal nurse consultant before. Talking to you, she was a nurse expert witness. So you are the first legal nurse consultant I've had. But either way, I always learn the most from people in your field. Now, real quick, you are also a lifestyle bodybuilder. Were you doing that while you were a travel ICU nurse? Was this something new that you picked up? How did this come about? Were you athletic as a kid? You played sports?
Oh, yeah. I was playing sports since I can remember. Every single sport, tumbling, trampoline, that went into cheerleading, lacrosse, the whole gamut, like track and field. I did it all. And then I got to college and I was doing what I could. I actually was introduced to lifting with high school. What was it? You could take like a strength and training class. And I did that class. So I was introduced to basic lifts, probably the worst form you would ever see, but I was introduced to it. And I knew I liked it. So when I got to college and it was my freshman year, I was still doing cardio. I always hated cardio. I was just good at it. Running.
I still did it, but I hated it.
I hated it. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just keep doing my things. I had the workouts I was doing. So I was constantly doing the same workouts, not challenging myself. And then I met my boyfriend, now husband. We've been together for 10 years now, plus 10 years. He was a football player in high school. He was always doing strength and training type things. And he was the one who wrote me my first lifts. And he was the one who was like, I finished, I think, my first program in 30 minutes. And he was like, okay, this should have taken you longer. You need to work harder. So he was coaching me without putting that title on. He was just coaching me. I started really enjoying that challenge. And you get to, of course, get those rookie gains. You start really being like, wait a second, my body looks different. I'm building things. I think it was our senior year. So we had been together for 3 years, and I started really learning how to challenge myself in the gym, which I think a lot of people don't know how to do. You're going to the gym and you're panting. You can't talk during a set. You are lifting. And I was like, hey, I didn't know what bodybuilding was. I didn't know what that term was. And then Instagram, I think this was also 2018, 2019. Instagram was still in its infancy to a degree. It wasn't really popping off just yet.
It's true.
I'm on Instagram and I'll see just little things like, what is this bodybuilding? What is this? We talked about, I was like, hey, do you want to compete? I like to say that I actually competed at the beginning of my bodybuilding journey because I didn't know what bodybuilding really was until after my first competition. But I was doing the bodybuilding thing, just not to the degree afterwards, because obviously throughout the 8-9 years I've been now bodybuilding, you're growing that entire time with your knowledge. So we came out of that.
How many times have you
I
competed?
competed just the once in 2019. Okay. It was a horrible coaching experience. Nick actually ended up helping me with he coached himself. We did the same competition together. He coached himself and he looked fantastic. I had a really horrible experience, but he ended up intervening a lot to be like, we're going to do this instead. And I'm really happy he did that.
It's cool you're doing it together.
We got to the stage. Yeah, we did it together. And at that time, it was a bucket list thing, doing the competition. And then I just went with it. I think for about a year after, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely go back to the stage. And then just life starts happening, right? I'm like, I'm going through nursing school. COVID happened. Husband graduates med school. We're getting jobs. All these things happen. I think it was about 5 years of me showing up for the grind of lifting heavy weight, working on form, trying different forms of lifts like periodization and time under tension versus explosive movements. All of that, I just loved it so much. I left my bedside job. There are some things that I think bedside really had its toll. I always felt fluffy. I think it was a cortisol issue. And I was like, Nick, I need to get a coach. And I don't want to have a coaching experience like I previously had. I don't want to compete. At this time, I was like, I'm not competing. If ever anyone asked me if I was going to compete, I was like, never say never, but never. But I was training like competitors would. I was eating and tracking macros and my steps and drinking water and the sleep. I was lifestyle bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And
I
got a coach. Yeah. And I was doing that for a long time alongside someone who also was in the same lifestyle, still does it, even through residency. So if people say they don't have time, also we don't have kids, so that's a caveat.
No, I have kids. I'm not like you guys, but you have to prioritize. You got to prioritize. So I got a coach because I want to figure out what's going on with my body. I want to understand my hormones better. I got a coach and I was interviewing a lot of coaches, figuring out who I wanted to be with. I did not want to be with someone who was just going to treat me as a paycheck and give me cookie cutter stuff. So I got with the team is called Physique Development. Yeah, exactly. And I also wanted to know things in depth. I wanted people who are going to teach me as well. I want to know the purpose behind something I'm doing. So you're similar. I feel like you're similar to me. You want to learn something so you could teach it. So you need to learn it thoroughly and really bring it in.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the protocol if I don't know why I'm doing it. I need to know the purpose. What does carb cycling do? I don't know. That was something that was implemented in 2019 when I was doing my bikini competition. That coach didn't tell me why I was doing it. And I was asking, and I was trying to do my own research. But that's really hard when you're also a student with a job. I'm paying you for a reason. Tell me. I knew that this time around, I wanted someone who was going to be a teacher for me. And competition was nothing we even discussed as something I wanted to do in the future. I wanted to figure out my body. Her name is Mia Ferguson. She's with Physique Development. And she helped me. We took labs. We figured out slight estrogen dominance. We figured out what supplements I need to be on. Period started being like perfect every single month. It was amazing. And then I took a break because I was getting married. Nick and I got married May of last year, and we planned everything ourselves. And then afterwards, all these things that I wanted to do that were in the back of my mind, it came like a freight train one day, and I really want to compete again. I say I'm type A. My husband's no, you're triple A. It's something I'm working on.
Not the medical condition, AAA.
And not that one.
A lot
Not
of
that
people,
AAA.
a lot of people on the outside looking at you or anyone who trains, they probably see it for the physicality that it is. But, you know, for me,
Yeah.
going to the gym, fitness, it's really not about your muscles. It's about your mental focus. It's about communicating
Oh,
with
yeah.
yourself. When I was a wrestler, I was all county in wrestling. I wrestled in the States. I walk like a wrestler. I walk like I'm ready to sprawl. When you're doing what you're doing, it reprograms your mind. Like everything you do, you're looking at it with those eyes. The way you look at food or your break, or maybe I'm sitting down too much. Maybe I should stand. It's really the only way to live for me. It's great to be that conscious of your body, and your body's weird. It's like it wants to be lazy, but then it punishes you for it. It wants you to just lay down
Yeah.
and eat and watch TV all day, but then you'll get like a stage 4 bed sore in a week, or you get chest pain from the weight you're gaining. It's crazy. It's a very interesting relationship that I have with my body. And as you get older, the muscle is there, but now the joints are starting to kind of doing yard
Oh,
work, and I
man.
sprained my wrist on bags. But
Oh my
again,
gosh.
but knowing yourself as you age and as you drop down a little bit, I don't feel like I can run through a brick wall anymore. If you asked me in my 20s and early 30s, I would have been like, yeah, what wall? Pick one. But as you age, you just, because you have a constant conversation with yourself on a daily basis at the gym or whatever you're doing, you're just able to adjust better.
I think if you are someone who's ever worn scrubs, if you've ever been in a hospital, I question, why aren't you in a gym? Why aren't you
Yeah.
moving your body? Why aren't you taking care of yourself? And I understand their excuses, because I was there when I was right before I left Bedside. I joke that I left Bedside because I couldn't hit my workouts. That's a joke that's actually reality, because I was so drained by the time I would be sitting in the parking lot, like 2 days, even 2 days
Yeah,
after a
it's tough.
shift.
It's tough.
And I'd be like, I have 300 milligrams of caffeine in me, and I don't,
Yeah, I know.
like, I'm tired. And that's honestly, that's also a big reason why I knew Bedside wasn't for me. I was like, I need more structure. I want to be hitting my workouts, and I don't want to feel like I'm chasing my energy levels anymore. I want to be intentional with every lift. I want to be intentional with everything I honestly do in life. I was getting to that point where I was like, everything was just, it was centered around my energy for Bedside, and then I had nothing left. And I was like
Well,
a
admit-
shell, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Half the reason I left my previous job, because it didn't work well with my gym schedule. I was missing shifts
There you go.
time, and
We're the same.
I don't know what it sounds like to other people, but you know what? Find that thing that you need and center your whole life around it. For me, I know,
Oh yeah.
I know I need to train as if I'm training for a sport. You have to, it's not casual for me. Some people it is, and that's fine, but also make sure you're getting it in and just structure your life around that thing that you need. You could be there for other people, but know what you need and then structure your life around that, so you don't have to make such an effort to take care of yourself, because you're no good to people if you're bitter or you're upset or you feel a certain way and you're not taking care of yourself. But that's just my 2 cents.
Absolutely. No, it's so valid. You should not be living for your work. I think that you should be passionate about your work, and I think you should feel purpose. And I think a big why behind me deciding to enter a competitive chapter in bodybuilding is because I will look at what I get to do to challenge my body. I will look at every cardio session, and you will not hear me complain. You will not hear me complain about not having a lot of food, because I've taken care of Ivory Lewis patients who are walking, talking, and they only get to be fed through a feeding tube for 6 to 8 weeks. So I don't want to hear it, because I do not know true torture. That is torturous. I get to eat real solid food, and I get to choose what that is, because I get macros to go off of. And I get to go challenge my body, and I'm not stuck in a hospital bed because I have some genetic abnormality where I'm sick all the time. I get to do these things.
You can go to the gym, so go. Like you can, you're
Yeah.
walking, and if it comes to your discipline, fix that, because there's nothing stopping you.
Yeah. I know that there's this huge thing right now where it's like, oh, like Pilates princess. I'm like, if Pilates is what you want to do, go do it. Just do something. Find some way, some movement that you enjoy. It doesn't need to be weight training. Not everyone likes to pushing weights, because I think a lot of women too, oh, you're going to get bulky, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, do what I do for 8 years and maybe you'll have some muscle on you. Okay.
Yeah.
But
No, you burn
I
the
mean,
most calories through weightlifting.
yes, you do. You
Yeah,
get a lot of
you
eat a
just
lot.
and then you create the micro tears, and when you're not working out, you're burning calories because your muscles are healing.
Yep, absolutely.
It got dark here. I hope my lights held up. I didn't turn on the room light. But I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the podcast, talking about your experiences as an ICU nurse and a travel ICU nurse and a nurse legal consultant and your lifestyle bodybuilding. There'll be links to your stuff in the description below. Just say out loud, like where can people find you?
I combine my two passions on my Instagram and my TikTok. It's Katrina Grace Stolick. And the third passion I have now is entrepreneurial. If you are interested in legal nurse consulting, whether it be in-house, whether it be expert work, whether it be being an independent legal nurse consultant, I would direct you to Legal Nurse Education. I'm the director of that. My business partner is Connolly. And that is our child that we're growing and building right now. We have a community of 1,500 nurses, and we'd love to have you there as well.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah.
You're very good at selling that, but also because you're sincere. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You don't come off as BS at all because
No, it's a free community too. There's a paid version, but it's free. We want to break down barriers to nurses getting into jobs like ours and corporate jobs. So we want what's best for nurses.
I'll
That's
have to
it.
get Connolly on here. You'll have to talk to her for
Yes,
me.
actually, you should have her on here. She'd be fantastic for the entrepreneurial side, especially.
Yeah,
She's amazing.
I love success. People don't realize when other people are successful, you have a greater chance of being successful too.
Yes.
And that's what you want. And to hear people on how they individually achieve that, it's just a wealth that money truly can't buy. And so I want to
Absolutely.
thank you on coming on here and telling me your story. And you've definitely have made an impact on me. And I hope for other people out there, that your information again will be below and will appear on the screen. And if people are interested, please reach out. Nurse Katrina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Don't be a stranger. I hope to have you on again at some point.